We do it right overseas, looking nice. Room service, if I like, I order twice. Hibachi, got the gravy on the rice. Rolling in Mexico.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome in to another edition of the Steelers Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betts, and I've got it rolling again into the music. My bad. My name is Jeremy Betts, and we are going to be breaking down all things about the NFL Combine, all the Steelers news and notes on this Combine Weekend edition of the Q&A. Welcome into the show to all of you who are tuning in live on YouTube. We appreciate you. Get your questions in the comment section, and we will discuss all of those as we get to them tonight. I've got a no stranger to this show. I've got somebody with me today that I always enjoy talking to, especially around this time of year. Shannon White, welcome in to the Steelers Q&A. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I've enjoyed the Combine this week, and we learned a lot. And so I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, man, we did learn a lot. There were some incredible performances on the field. There's a lot to learn and take away from the stuff that happened off the field as well. And so we're going to dive into all that, but I guess let's go ahead and do this. What's your biggest takeaway, Steelers-wise, from NFL Combine weekend, Shannon?
I think that it's some of the positions of need for the Steelers. There is, some pretty, like it's deep at tackle, defensive tackle. There's some quality linemen, offensive linemen.
Yep.
There's some good receivers, not as deep as last year as far as early starters, but there's a lot of developmental guys. And there's not as many generational players this year.
Yeah.
But there is good talent. So those generational guys are going to be guys, if the Steelers get lucky, maybe they can get a hold of one.
Yeah, this is going to be a very what do you want, what do you need draft for these teams. Not necessarily, okay, these are the top 32 guys, and those are the guys that are going to go. There's going to be a lot of picking and choosing as early as the first round. So I think we'll have some surprises that swoop in on us in the first round, and maybe the Steelers can be benefactors of that and land a really good player. My biggest takeaway from the Combine is that it's the traditionally non-valuable, or not traditionally. Let's put it this way. It's the more recent modern game, less valuable positions that are the deepest and best in this draft. It's a really good safety group this year. I like the safety group. It's a really good running back group. There's some tight ends that you like to see. And the Combine wasn't super kind to the tight ends, but some of the production you're seeing from those guys on tape and everything like that, that's still pretty good. And then you do have a couple of your standard, like these are the positions that everybody needs. Everybody wants a Pro Bowl type player at. Edge rusher is really good. And then defensive tackle, that's a prime position these days as well. Those guys are good. But yeah, there's no, I don't think I come out of the Combine week excited about any of these quarterbacks. And I don't think I come out of Combine week super excited about many wide receivers outside of 4 or 5 guys that I think maybe help their stock a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting because the Steelers, they have some interesting needs this offseason, and how they attack the draft combined with free agency is going to determine a lot about this team moving forward. The good news is, Shannon, they have a lot of capital, whether that's draft capital or monetary capital, to go after some guys.
Yeah. One thing we really wanted and needed to see, which makes it frustrating when some of the top guys don't participate. And I understand the reasoning. Now, me personally, as a GM, I want the guys that want to compete. The greats down through my age group, they wanted, anytime they got to show and prove themselves against the top competition, they competed. Yeah. I mean, it was just a given. You was considered a coward if you didn't. Now it's perfectly acceptable to say, I'm going to wait for my pro day where the conditions are perfect. I'm throwing I'm catching balls from my regular quarterbacks and I'm surrounded in the cozy confines of home. I want to see what you do when it's not totally scripted. And there is more of a high risk, high reward type of situation. And, but I understand with the injury situations and stuff of that nature. But a lot of the guys that I was real interested in seeing didn't participate. Now, some couldn't because of a previous injury or something like that. It's going to be interesting that now the Steelers have a better idea of what they need to focus on in free agency because, some of these positions they can fill at the draft.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We can talk about some of those position groups maybe later on the show that we think the Steelers should definitely pursue in free agency as opposed to in the draft. But let's get to some of the questions that we're getting here. Afton Forad asks the first question, who were you most pleasantly surprised by at the Combine? And this is a good one. This kind of takes it out of maybe who had the best day. Let's talk about maybe who we thought jumped out at us that maybe we weren't expecting to. Did you have a player, Shannon, that you laid eyes on that really jumped off the screen to you?
Well, each day I was conversing with Big G, my podcast partner, Sean Gurley, and so I'd look through a lot of my notes, and Ty Robertson, the defensive tackle at Iowa.
Yeah.
I was a big Braden Fisk fan last year. In the second round, I wanted Braden Fisk or I wanted Zach Frazier. And luckily, Fisk went first, and it didn't put the Steelers in a pickle to make that decision. And they was able to get Frazier, who is going to be barring injury, he's the guy for the Steelers. But Robertson is smaller, but at 288. But if you look at him, he easily is going to be playing over 300. Easily. I mean, he come in to run faster for the 40, and he did. He was the fastest defensive lineman, and things he did. The young man, the safety, Nick Imanwara.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Now, you talking about a generational talent. I mean, when I seen him, to understand what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Let's think back to this Steelers defense. They have had a Rod Woodson who could do things that other guys couldn't do. They've had a Greg Lloyd. They've had Troy Polamalu, who could do things extra otherworldly. Then they had Ryan Shazier, who was becoming that special factor. You take a kid like this, and you put him in that defense with T.J. Watt and what they've already got there, and you move him around. He can play inside off-ball linebacker. He can play safety. He can man the slot. That kid could do so many things, and you would never know where he's coming from. To have that level of creativity, I don't know if Terrell Austin has it in him, but to have that level of creativity would open up everything for everybody else.
Yeah.
So there is some generational guys. They're just few and far between. But that young man stood out to me.
Yeah, he did. I'll tell you the guy who surprised me completely because I don't know if I saw the speed on film that we saw at the Combine, but I mean, he's a dynamic playmaker. So I'm not saying that I wasn't expecting him to have a good Combine, but to just absolutely tear up the 40-yard dash like Matthew Golden did was insane. Absolutely insane. This is a surefire first round pick now at this point. And for my money, I was like, I don't know. Maybe he's a back into the first round, early second round guy because of the limited experience. But he ended up being Texas wide receiver 1 last year. And it was really impressive. But the way he plays, I didn't see a lot of that just tear down the field breakaway speed on film, but now you see it at the Combine. 4.29. I mean, that's not an accident. You don't just go out and accidentally run a 4.29. That's real speed. And it's going to be something that pushes his draft stock way up. And he was explosive too. He's got a lot of good traits. He's a good size receiver. He can play inside and outside. And I think the combine, it just surprised me how fast he was. So very pleasantly surprised by those guys. And I agree with you about both players you mentioned in the process here too. Another question we have, kind of off the combine topic, but very definitely part of the conversations that were happening at the combine. AFL 67 asked, my question, would you pay Justin what you are willing to pay Russ, or just if he's cheap? What are you doing to bring in Fields, Shannon? Is he a guy that you want in the building? We haven't talked about that really since the end of the season. Is he the quarterback of choice for you?
Well, we've talked about it a good bit on other podcasts, and yeah, like you said, me and you haven't got to, but yeah, I believe that Fields, if they're going to roll it back with all the same coaches, then I believe that Fields, I think Smith has a vision of what he wants to do with his quarterback. And if you could give said quarterback, who I think Justin Fields should be the choice over Russell Wilson. If you give him a better rushing attack, more speed in the backfield, more threats where you could stretch the field, that'll open things up for Fields and your new receivers and Pickens. And so I am all for paying Justin Fields before I would ever pay Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I would be willing to pay him more than, the market value would say, which if you went by Spot Track earlier, it was like $7 million on a 1-year deal. That was insanely low to me. But I personally, and I don't know if it goes up to this, but I would pay Justin Fields with what's on the market. I'd pay him $25 million a year for 2 years.
Well, no,
it seems high, but I'd do it.
Sean, Big G agrees with 25, like you.
Yeah.
I believe, it's kind of, you don't want to bid against yourself, but there is going to be interest in him in the market.
Absolutely.
And if you let him hit the market, but I would try 20.
Yeah.
Say a 2-year deal and then even a 3-year deal. And then give him a real chance in an offense built to his skill set. And then if it doesn't pan out, you're not going to be successful, and you go after one of the other quarterbacks in another class, because I'm not impressed with this class.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think the Steelers are impressed with this class either. They're going to want to have this figured out before free agency starts in, let's see, 10 days now. It's right around the corner here for us. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I agree with you. And to me, Fields, when you look at quarterback contracts today, $25 million is nothing. And this was a guy who was 4-2 for you last year. The salary cap's just going to keep going up as we keep going on. So you have the money that you have this year is not the same money you'll have in a few years. So $25 million in 2 years for Justin Fields is going to look like even less of pennies than it does now when you're talking about quarterbacks. So to me, it makes plenty of sense to do that. You can start backloading some of these deals too, if guys are willing to take it, which will still allow you to bring in a good set of free agents this offseason. And then, obviously draft guys. I think, long-term success, it has to be that you're drafting players, but the Steelers could make a pretty substantial turnaround this year if they have the right quarterback in place. With the amount of money that they have for free agency this season. So I think that there's a chance that there's a lot that the Steelers can do. And I think that they're going to try, because every person we heard this week, Omar Khan, Art Rooney II, those guys, when they get their media availability, they don't think they're that far off from the Super Bowl. We think as fans, we can think a little bit differently, but inside the organization, they obviously feel like they're close based on the type of moves that they're making.
They obviously feel that it's not coaching in any way, and it's not schematics, which I struggle to believe But they obviously feel that it's a lack of overall talent and they need to strengthen. Now, obviously, playmakers the Steelers are in desperate need for playmakers on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, but especially on the offense. They've got to increase the talent, and you're going to spend some money to do that.
Yeah.
But there's guys, like I said, my favorite receiver. Now, everybody knows I'm a huge Puka Nacua fan.
Right.
And let us remember, he ran a 4.57. I'll take him over about anybody in the league right now. The guy knows how to get open. He makes contested catches. He hand catcher. He does it all. He got incredible balance in and out of cuts. The guy that reminds me of him this year is Besh from TCU.
Yeah.
That young man did not run the 40. And I wish he would have, because I don't care if he runs a 4.57. He caught everything. When he went through the gauntlet, it was perfect. I mean, and he's not looking it in. And some of them guys, you can tell, boy, they're scared to death. They're going to drop that ball. That young man is a baller. Now, watched him in the Senior Bowl, and I think it was Howard left him to dry on a couple of throws over the middle. He caught him and got blew up. Popped right up, went back to the man. A lot of these guys nowadays, they'd be like, "Nuh-uh, don't leave me hanging out over the middle like that." That kid is tough. He's a baller. He's everything the Steelers need in that locker room and on the field. So I've seen some value kind of down the line. And I think Besh will go earlier than a lot of people think. But as you say, if we're going to roll it back, we need some of the continuity to continue from last year and have guys that match the plan. And that is going to include, as I know we're going to talk about, speed and running back.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's get to some more of these questions in here and comments. Big G is in the chat. Thanks, Big G, for tuning in. We appreciate you. We need to trade Minkah. That is what I learned. This is what from Big G. Nick Emenwari, safety, South Carolina. Trade Minkah for a second and a fifth, and do not let this kid up in Baltimore. Don't pass on him. This guy is him. So he's in on the Nick Emenwari hype train. I like this line of thinking as well. If you're going to be able to get something substantial for Minkah Fitzpatrick to get younger there and maybe not miss out on a generational player, even if you can't trade Minkah, maybe you still go ahead and do this at 21 just because of the type of player he is. Best player available is always a good draft strategy, I think. And if he's at 21, he's probably the best player available at that point.
Again, generational talent.
Yep.
And as you say, he can start out as a backup, lower pressure, behind Elliott and Fitzpatrick, and then work his way in. But again, like I said, he can play off ball. He can play in the slot. As you say, if he's at 21, he's definitely the best value, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do. It'd be fun. John Malesko, who do you think hurt their stock at the combine, who might fall to 21 that you didn't think would prior? This is a really good question. Because the quarterback situation is really interesting, I don't know where any of those guys are going to go. And so there's going to be a lot of guys going ahead of that. And it wasn't like anybody had such a combine that I think that it would trump their tape to the point where, man, I'm not taking this guy in the first 15 picks or anything like that. So John, it's a boring answer, but I don't really know if there is anyone who after the combine hurt themselves so much that they were a surefire top 10 pick and now they're not. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one. Shannon, do you have an answer maybe for this question?
No, the guys I was really focusing on is Steeler related. So maybe some of the positions, like I'm a linebacker guy. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Nobody blew me away this year.
Yeah.
I'm watching and I'm like, could develop into a solid pro, but it ain't nobody. I'm like, oh man, they got to get this kid. Tight ends, the guys I'm really in. Warren, he didn't run, he didn't perform. So the guys I was really interested in didn't. And so I really can't say off the top of my head anybody that hurt themselves that would fall to the Steelers at 21. Because like I said, even if the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, when it comes to draft time, fall to 21, I'm really not that interested.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's not like the Steelers. I think the one position group that had a poor combine overall was the tight end group. But then again, Tyler Warren didn't participate. Colson Loveland didn't participate. So it's a good group, I think, based on the film, but the Steelers don't necessarily need a tight end anyway. So I don't know how that probably doesn't correlate to what the Steelers are going to be trying to pick at 21. And then I don't think they're in on an offensive lineman there. We haven't talked about Derek Harmon, who had a great combine, I thought, and he measured out really well. And this is a guy that I think is going to be high on the Steelers' radar for that 21st overall pick. If he doesn't go earlier, I think him and maybe a couple guys like Matthew Golden now, Emeka Egbuka, Kenneth Grant. That's kind of my short list of guys to go to the Steelers at 21, unless somebody like Emenwari falls to them. But I mean, if I know some of these teams ahead of the Steelers, Nick Emenwari is not getting past probably the Colts at 15. That team loves to draft the athletic freaks, and they need help everywhere. So why not go get the best player available? I just don't know if he's going to make it to them. There's a guy. Let me talk about another safety then, as kind of an answer to this question, but maybe not for the first round potentially. Malachi Starks, who I thought was, a first round pick, but maybe back into the first round. He might fall to round 2 after his combine. He was quick in all of the shuttles and drills and everything. He looked fluid and smooth, but his testing numbers weren't good. His vertical wasn't that good. His 40 wasn't good. So Malachi Starks did not have a great combine. But I think he's got Brian Branch type potential to him, where he's just a good football player, an instinctive football player. And when it comes to play speed, he's going to make up for maybe the lack of high end athleticism like an Emenwari has. So maybe he falls to the second round now, and he would be a guy that could help the Steelers out. But I think that they're going to address the secondary pretty well and pretty heavily in free agency.
I think it's funny. Again, we're talking the 40s. Golden did not impress me. He's more of a straight line, deep ball guy. The Steelers need more complete receiving threat all over the field. That's why I like Besh. I like Horn.
Yeah.
I think Horn is underrated. The young man out of Colorado. Good
Jimmy
value in the early day 3 maybe. Guys to look at there. But you was talking about Starks. He run a 4.5.
Yeah,
that's faster than Branch.
Sure.
But but again, when you watch Branch, you think he's a 4 guy,
right?
Because of the instincts and the intelligence and the quickness, the quick first step. So as you say, some of them testing numbers might drop him back a little, but a team like the Steelers can benefit.
Yeah, and it wasn't to say that he had a bad combine. It just wasn't a standout combine. And when you're at a position that the value has deteriorated on, you need to have a Nick Emenwari type combine to solidify yourself as a first round pick.
What was the guy, Tariq Smith from Georgia last year? And he went to the Buccaneers and had a really good rookie year.
Yep, Tyke Smith. Yep.
Yeah, he was from West Virginia. And I watched him for a few seasons. Then he went to Georgia. And he was undersized. He's like 5'9", and 190 pounds. But the guy was a player. And I was saying, hey, that's a guy you need to look at. And people thought he was too small, but he had a very successful year. So
that he did. Let's go ahead and take a break real quick, just to get the ad read in there for those listening on audio later. If you're sticking with us here on the live show, though, we're not going anywhere. We will be right back here on the Steelers Q&A. And welcome back to the Steelers Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betts, and I'm joined by Shannon White. We're breaking down the NFL Combine, all the news and notes and activities that went down on the field. John Malesko has a question for us. Who would you take as a luxury pick that you don't see as a need but can't pass up if they are available? I would assume this is kind of the first round pick conversation, but Shannon, you can take this however you want or whichever way you want to. Which player would be a luxury pick, but if they're available, you take them?
Again, what is it? Can't say his name unless I look at it. Emenora.
Yeah.
Emenora. I mean, again, for the reasons why I was saying, if it's a generational type, which I don't see any at quarterback.
Right.
Austin Gentry at running back, but I like Hampton better.
Yeah.
I know Coach Smith was at the combine, KT, and he said that the guy is just as impressive, a physical, freak. And I think he would be an excellent fit because he has the size and the power, but he has the speed. So I've been seeing people saying, well, what about Najee and bringing Najee back? Najee doesn't fit this offense. He will never be an outside zone running back. And he doesn't have natural vision. Two things you got to have. You got to have the ability to let the play develop, find and locate the hole or anticipate the hole with your vision, and then have the quick acceleration to hit the hole. You don't have to have the top speed every time, but you got to have that acceleration. Najee has none of that. So don't wish Najee back. Let Najee go somewhere that fits him. Let him be more successful, and let the Steelers get somebody that fits what they need. But to me, it would have to be somebody that was just because I don't want him to pull the trigger on, say, Gentry in the first when they have so many other needs. And I think there's value to be had on day 2 at running back.
Right. There's a couple guys for me that are fun. Tyler Warren's one of them. Okay. If he fell to 21, that's interesting.
You have to consider
he's such a dynamic playmaker. He's like Brock Bowers 2.0. I mean, he's that type of player. And you saw what Bowers did on a bad Raiders team last year. That would be really intriguing. You said you're a linebacker guy. How about Jihad Campbell? How about that guy?
I mean, he fell
to 21.
He looks.
Yeah. That one's interesting. I don't think they do it. A guy I'm really high on, Jahdae Barron, out of Texas, cornerback. I don't think they do it, but he's interesting to me too. He sounds like a really good player that is going to have a great future, and he can start inside for you right away at nickel, and he would easily be the best nickel on the Steelers from day one. But then he can also play outside if you need him to, if you don't get that filled in free agency. Those are a couple guys that I like there. Let's move on to another question here. This one from Afton. What did y'all think of Wyatt Milam for a guard? What do you think, Shannon? Did you check out Wyatt Milam in the combine here?
Oh yeah, like I said, I've got to watch him for a few years. I think a lot of people are projecting him to be a guard at times because he didn't have the best 40.
Right.
But again, if you watch him, he's got excellent height. He's very tenacious, good fundamentals, good footwork. The Steelers have a little bit of an inside advantage there that Frazier knows him very well. Nestor, who's on the practice squad for the Steelers, knows him very well. And I'm sure the coaches from their time recruiting and evaluating Frazier know him very well. He is an excellent player and a fine young man. I think that you could put him at right tackle and put Fa'atanu at right guard, and it would be absolutely fine. I think he could play right tackle his rookie year. Now, because I do believe Fautanu will eventually be a guard.
Okay. Yeah. I see him being their starting tackle this year. But yeah, I like Milam as a guard prospect. He does have good height for the tackle position, but his arms aren't quite as long. They're 32 and an eighth, measured at the combine. So that sounds like a kick into guard to me, but he anchors really well. What was he the one that allowed like 2 sacks over his college career? Am I correct on that one? Or is that that may have been the LSU kid that I was seeing that on.
I don't remember them saying with Milam. I do not remember him giving up one his senior year at all. But now
he had a fantastic senior year. It's really what put him on the map. And as a run blocker too, he really gets his mass moving, which is good. He had a good short shuttle. If I can find it again, it was 4.69 seconds. That's not bad for a big dude on the 20-yard shuttle. So he's got some quickness to his game. The long speed, obviously, we don't care about that when it comes to the combine, but he's got some short area quickness and good hands, heavy hands when it comes to blocking. So I like that. I think he could be an option at guard if the Steelers were to take him. What round do you think he goes, Shannon, at this point?
Right now, I'm going to say second.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, it's gonna depend. But I thought all along that he should be in the top 3 or 4 tackles. In this class. So nothing happened to change my mind on that.
Sure. John S. asks, does what the Steelers see at the combine impact how they value draft picks? And could that evaluation determine whether or not they trade picks for, say, a Cooper Kupp? I think it does depend on the position group. But to me, the Steelers' biggest positional need is at quarterback. And that's why I think that's how I see the combine has impacted the combine, and obviously the evaluation process has impacted what they're trying to do is at quarterback, where they're basically locking themselves into signing somebody before March 12th, which is the start of the new league year. That's what they want. It's what they feel they need to do. So the combine probably further solidified that because nobody really stood out, even in the passing drills. It was kind of a mess overall. I wasn't a fan of anybody really that threw outside of maybe Tyler Shuck looked pretty good, but it was mostly just kind of the easy arm strength that you saw out of him. But my guy, Will Howard, he even struggled. And it goes to show, like you were saying, you want to see what these guys can do, a little bit of something that's unscripted, but it is fair to say too, that you build chemistry with your teammates. So there is a part of the game that is scripted, if you will, from that angle, just how guys run routes, where they're taught to do it. And these guys running routes were running all over the place. No 2 guys ran the same route the whole entire weekend of the combine. So it takes a little bit of a shine away from the quarterbacks for me there. But to me, it's quarterback that changed this thing. I get the question though, like, do they value their 2nd round pick as much anymore, or their 3rd round pick as much anymore based on the talent that they saw at the combine? Would they be willing to trade that pick for a sure thing commodity? I think you'd be willing to do that anyway, but what say you?
Well, I think when you see what's out there, in the talent pool and where you might get a guy, like we've talked about, certain receivers, you have to reconsider. And Abuke, Besh, is it McMillan, the kid out of Arizona, or
McMillan? Yep.
Yeah, there is some talent, and I didn't want Deebo Samuel. I was glad he went to Washington. He's a better fit there. I wanted Deebo 2 years ago. I don't want the old Deebo. Give me the guy that still had some gas. I don't want Deshaun Adams now. I wanted him 2 years ago. Hey, look, I wanted last year. Now, after the injury and everything else, I ain't interested. So I love Cooper Kupp. I wanted him in the season last year, but now I'm like, he's that much older, and he's still going to have a hefty price tag, and you're going to have to give up draft capital. So I just think that you want to build a young nucleus. Why teams are exciting that we see are up and coming like Washington is they have a very young nucleus. Green Bay's the youngest team in the NFL.
Right.
That's the formula for long-term success.
Right.
Now you could go all in to win a championship like the Rams did, but then it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
I would rather see this Steelers squad, the way things are presently, build with a young nucleus.
I agree with that. That's always the best way. It's something that Kevin Colbert did very well when the Steelers had a high-priced quarterback. They were able to fill positions of need through the draft and keep themselves competitive throughout basically his whole career. And they were finding guys like Antonio Brown in the 6th round, right? They were finding guys like Martavis Bryant in the 4th round. And you had Le'Veon Bell in the 2nd round. It wasn't just your 1st round pick that mattered every time, but they were hitting on picks that helped them to stay competitive through that. They need to do a little bit better job of that now here recently. Kevin Colbert's final few years weren't very good as far as drafting sustainable talent, and they've had to fill in gaps through free agency more than they wanted to. Omar Khan, I think, has started well, but we need to see these guys a few years down the road to see whether it's actually panning out the way we want it to. So, but building through the draft for longevity is the only way to do it. You're not going to do it with free agency classes because it's very rare that a young stud player becomes available in free agency at any position, let alone valuable positions that affect your team for the long run right away.
And when they do, they're high price guys.
Exactly. Yep.
Unless you hit on a bargain, but it's hard to do.
Yep. And the salary cap world of the NFL means that usually the best teams don't get those players. It's the bad teams that have a ton of cap space or a lot of draft capital to send over to somebody. So that's how that happens usually. John asked another. Oh, sorry. This is the same question. My bad. Let's get to this one from Rick Martinez. Might have already been said if the Steelers are going to try to use the 3 safety type style, and if they are willing to be creative enough in it, is a top safety falls to or if a top high skill safety falls to a 2nd or 3rd round pick, we've talked about this. That could be something that they go after, but really you want to get, if you want an impact player for 2025 at safety, it's got to be one of the top 2 or 3 guys. It's not going to be somebody in the 3rd round, I don't think.
No, they definitely need improvement in safety.
They do.
I'm very concerned about Minkah. I don't know what changed, what happened. Guys can have, knee injuries, different things to rob them of a little bit that they needed that made them special, and then they become more average players. But the last 2 years, he's been average. And if you're going to do a 3 safety look, you need 3 top safeties. And actually, you need more defensive backs, which the Steelers definitely do.
Yeah.
We need to finally see Corey Trice stay healthy, pan out. Porter, Jackson, they're going to hopefully add at least one guy in free agency. So, the way the game is played now, you need more defensive backs out there. That's why it's going to raise the value of some of these safeties, like Imura.
Right.
So, as you say, he might not even be there at 21, and he was not projected to go that high.
Right. Exactly. Big G kind of follows that up. Do you trade Minkah and draft South Carolina safety at 21? We've talked about this already, but I would do that, especially for a 2nd and a 5th, 2 picks for Minkah. Sign me up for that. And draft the best player available at 21, or package that 5th in something to go up and get him. I don't know. So that makes sense to me. I'm all for Shannon getting younger and cheaper on defense with high-end draft talent so that you can focus in on the offense with some of the more high-priced guys if you're willing to kind of balance that budget a little bit, offense to defense. But to me, it's about just finding the right guys. It's come out quickly before this show, towards the end of the combine, that the Jets are probably making Devontae Adams available via trade. I would still jump on that if I was the Steelers. That would be a good player to pair with George Pickens, and then you draft a guy, and so maybe you figure out your wide receiver 2 by trading for somebody, and then you don't have to pick that as high. You can go after Jaden Higgins in the 3rd round, or maybe Josh Beck in the 2nd or 3rd round, something like that as well, where you're not spending your 1st round pick on him. You can help yourself along the defensive line and some other areas, even guard or safety, like Big G is mentioning here. But there's plenty of ways you can attack this. They just need to be smart with it, and figure out the market the best that they can.
Yeah, you mentioned Higgins, another young man, great length. Contested catch type guy, runs a complete tree. Again, Adams follows Rodgers around the NFL, and, and Rodgers is going to be somewhere else next year, and I don't want it to be Pittsburgh. So
Amen
I hope
that.
Rodgers just follows him. They want to be on the West Coast. Let them go to the West Coast. But
that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I just think that this Steelers team, I'm afraid that people want to chase a title for TJ and for Cam.
Yeah.
And, here's the problem. They chased, they thought they were closer than they were, and they kept trying to add 1 or 2 pieces under Colbert since 2017. During that time, no high-priced free agents.
Right.
And they drafted 1 All-Pro, and that was TJ Watt.
Yeah.
So it was a disaster. And now Khan and Waddle's trying to recover from this.
Yeah.
I want to see them get younger and do it with talent and develop said talent. Now, this coaching staff still has to prove to me that they can do that.
Yes. And that's why I've advocated too for the Pittsburgh Steelers that if Justin Fields doesn't work out for you, don't go chasing a high price guy this year. Don't try to bring in a $30+ million guy this year. Mm-hmm. Save that money, build the rest of the roster, and go all in for 2026 in the draft or whatever. Don't do that this year. Go all in for quarterback next year. And let's be honest. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win 9 or 10 games with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback or Marcus Mariota at quarterback. If they keep building the roster up like they can, and with Mike Tomlin's coaching, just as much as they would do so with Sam Darnold. I would not go out and pay Sam Darnold big money to come in and be my bridge quarterback for a year or whatever you're thinking, just so you can say, well, we did our best to make ourselves as much of a contender this year as we can. So I agree with you there. Don't mortgage the future for a now that's not going to get you any closer to a Super Bowl just because you've got a TJ Watt and a Cam Hayward on the staff or on the team. Maybe build the rest of the roster around those guys, go get your quarterback next year and see if you can work it out in the next 2 to 3 years, as opposed to all your eggs in one basket this year when the basket is very, very slim pickings when it comes to good quarterbacks.
It hurt me. One of my all-time favorite players, Greg Lloyd, he didn't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that hurt. I'd love to see Watt and Cameron win one. But that's not how you build another championship caliber contending team, by trying to rush a process when you're not even in the realm of contender yet. Now, we've seen quick turnarounds with the modern day free agency draft, and you catch lightning in a bottle. But the first thing they have to do is take care of this quarterback situation, and then they can know what they're going to do, what offense, what scheme, and who they need to target. Everything is kind of up in there until we know that.
That's right. Absolutely. Big G asks us this question: who is your top running back? Based on the depth, do you let Warren walk and draft 2 running backs in 2025? I'm not on the 2 running back train when you've got one in your pocket already. In as far as Warren goes, he's good enough. I think you pair him with a higher draft pick that you've got a really good running back room just by doing that, instead of having to spend 2 draft picks on a position where you need to be spending draft picks at other spots as well. But my top running back is Ashton Jeanty. And I know there's a lot of chatter after the combine that Amari and Hampton could be some team's RB1. I can't imagine that world. He's a good player, a really good player, but Ashton Jeanty was special. I mean, this is a guy that's, in my opinion, a generational talent at running back, definitely worthy of a first round pick. If he was there at 21, I would not be mad if the Steelers picked him personally.
I have to see more. I mean, the level of competition, I watched him because I wanted to see if he was going to break the records. And, so I would tune into those games as much as I hate watching that blue turf. My gosh, that's nauseating.
It is.
But, I mean, he's a talented. They compare him to a slightly taller Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah.
Slightly taller, slightly faster. I think he's a good player. I like Hampton. I think he ran faster than I expected.
Yeah.
I do think that you pair him with Warren. See, Warren's already the more diminutive little muscle mouse, and then you have Hampton. I would even consider double dipping because I was hoping a guy like Tootin would fall out of Virginia Tech, but then he goes out and runs the best 40, and now he's on everybody's radar. But it could help knock Henderson or the other young man from Ohio State.
Judkins,
Yeah, Judkins. Knock them down and have a good value there. But, I mean, I'd be fine with one guy, but it has to be a guy that fits this offense.
It does. It needs to be a zone type guy. It needs to be, I think, a home run hitter type guy personally, because Jaylen Warren, to me, he's not a home run hitter. He's the pinball guy. Yeah. He's the third down back. So if I'm picking what kind of opposite Jaylen Warren I don't want the sledgehammer again, like we've had with Najee. Give me the guy who can take it to the house from anywhere, that type of running back. And so I do like Travion Henderson, or, Bashal Tootin is a great speed type running back. I don't know what his fit is as far as zone runner or anything like that. I think he could be fine with it. But Ashton Jeanty, the thing that separates him for me is that offensive line at Boise State wasn't great. He created so much for himself, and they weren't bad, but he created so much for himself that he's the kind of guy who can elevate your team just on his own by inserting him into the lineup. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see his pro day. What's he run? But I was watching the young man out of Iowa,
Kyron Johnson.
Yes, Johnson. That he run a 4.57 maybe, which was very Le'Veon Bell like.
Yeah.
And when I watched him run, and he had so many long runs at Iowa.
Yeah, he did.
Really good vision, flows, finds the hole. He's an outside zone guy at 4.57. I got to ask you, what do you think? Najee Harris never ran the 40. The Steelers spent a first-round draft pick on a guy they'd never seen run a 40-yard dash.
Yep.
Now, I don't put all my stock in the 40. But what I'm saying is, I think Harris is legendarily slow.
Sure.
If we really knew what he ran, I think he did everything in his power to make sure that he wasn't running no 40 prior to the draft.
He was estimated based on his miles per hour and stuff like that he would have run a 4.67, Najee Harris, which is pretty slow.
It's slow.
But let me ask you this. you said Kyron Johnson, which he did. He ran a 4.57, I think it was in the end. Derrick Henry, who can run away from anybody, right, on the football field.
Yeah, wasn't it 4.53?
4.54. So
okay, 4.54. Okay.
I mean, that's the same thing, right?
Back when he was drafted, I worked with a guy, and the guy was like, "That was the dumbest pick," and I was like, "I think he's going to be a really good player. If you look back at everything he's ever done, from high school through college, I mean, he's very powerful, and he builds up speed. And he's like, he's slower than his lineman, and he was basing it on the 4.54,
right?
But like you say, when he breaks it, nobody runs him down because he's got them long strides, So, again, same thing with Johnson. He had a lot of long runs for Iowa, and that's a Big Ten school. So, I mean, I just think that Harris, I was hoping he would be like a Henry and play faster when he got in the open field, but he has no acceleration.
No, none. No lickety split in Najee Harris. I think we should. If Najee's truly done in Pittsburgh, we've got to take your quote there, legendarily slow, and put it on a T-shirt with Najee Harris on the front. I might buy that one. That's hilarious. All right, couple more questions here, and then we'll hop out. Joseph, sorry, Joseph, I'm not going to say your last name on the show. Do you think the Steelers will try to get positions filled in free agency and then add in the draft by picking best players available? I mean, that's always their stated goal. I don't know if they always follow that goal, Shannon, but that sounds like a good idea to me, except for maybe running back, which I think the draft is so deep. If you bring back Jaylen Warren and you've got a guy that you can, like a practice squad type guy or an elevate type guy that you can bring in as your RB3, that you feel pretty good if you go ahead and draft somebody.
Yeah, I mean, there's some free agents that would fit so well in this Steelers system right now. And we know that Waddle and the Steelers are very familiar with Andy Staten-Williams, the defensive tackle out of Philly.
Yeah.
He's like the top defensive lineman available. Steelers would have to pay. But you've got different corners, slot corners. You got Reed out there. You got Murphy out there. You got some guys that you could put with Porter, and at the receiver position, there's a couple of guys. If the price is right, so you could add there and in the draft. You could do that with defensive tackle. So I expect the Steelers to try to double dip with one being a free agent, one being a pick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And they're talking about Nick Chubb. And I've always been a big Nick Chubb fan. He would be 1 year removed from the injury. And if the price is right, I love the attitude.
Yeah, I do too. And it's low risk if the price is right.
Exactly.
Because you can draft somebody too, and you can have a really good deep running back room for a team that wants to run the football. So, and if Justin Fields comes back too, that helps your running game even more.
We talked about it on different podcasts. When Fields was in there, he would just hand the ball off, and he would take 3 steps to the, going around the edge, and he would have defense. The edge guy would have to wait and watch him, and the whoever the off ball was on that side hesitated.
Yeah,
and he didn't do that with Wilson because there was no threat of him keeping it. If you break Fields and improve the backfield and the offensive line with getting everybody healthy and back, you could see some drastic improvement there.
Yeah, you could turn into a Philly light, where they've got Hurts and Saquon. You could have your version of it with Fields and whoever out there. It just needs to be the right guy. It does, and you've got to commit to it. And I think you got to run a lot of RPOs. If you bring in Fields, it needs to be more shotgun based, RPO based type play action than the under center stuff that I felt like they plugged Justin into Russ's offense and tried to make him run that more or less.
Yeah,
with the rushing goal, did not work as well as it could have.
Yeah, it did not work, and it wasn't fair to Justin. I thought he did well considering. Big G's watched a lot of tape, and he said that you could see Fields would look at the guy and hesitate not throw it. Because, again, when your coach is telling you, protect the ball, don't throw over the middle. I mean, let him run the system like Hurts runs the system to have the growing pains.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rams start every year. What is it, like 1-4, 3-5, and then they end up making the playoffs. Yeah. You don't panic, but really see if you're seeing improvement.
Yeah.
And don't, there's nothing Jalen Hurts is doing that Fields can't do, but it's going to come down. The one, you got to surround him with more skill position talent, but the offensive line finally has to gel, put Jones where he needs to be on the left side, leave these guys alone, let them grow. If that happens, they can do some of the things the Eagles do.
Yep, I agree. All right, Shannon, good stuff. Lots of fun. We're not going to get to every question tonight. It's a long show already, but we appreciate all of you guys tuning in and being so interactive with us. It's a big weekend, obviously, with the Combine here, and we always appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, hit the like button on it. Subscribe to our channel as well, Steel Curtain Network. Go subscribe to the Fans First Sports Network as well, and check out everything going on the website. Shannon, you want to plug anything before we head out of here?
Well, tomorrow night, it'll be me and Daniel J on The Hangover at 9, and then good Lord willing, on Wednesday, 8 o'clock, we'll have a Pump Your Brakes with Brother Tate and Big G. So, check us out this week.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Follow, if you missed out on the Combine tracker for the Steelers on steelcurtainnetwork.com to see who they met with formally all throughout the Combine process, go check that out. We'll have the final update on it tomorrow morning, which is Monday. So check that out. And next up, tampering period, free agency, new league year, and then the draft not far behind that. Shannon, we're going to have a lot to talk about over the next few weeks, but I hope you do well. We'll have you on the show again here soon.
Looking forward to it.
That's going to do it for us here on the Steelers Q&A. Have a good Sunday night, everybody.